Hi there, what's up everyone? Matt and Bailey Review here. Alright, so you're probably wondering why I said Matt and Bailey. Okay, so me and my friend Bailey wanted to start this channel to discuss music. Me and him both love music, and we'll be discussing our favorite albums, upcoming albums, track reviews, and maybe even live updates on brand new stuff. So, whenever new stuff comes out, we'll be talking about it. But first, I myself personally on this channel wanted to do a top 5. He didn't want to join in this video because he had a very hard time coming up with the top 5. He listens to a lot more music than I do, so I totally respect that and I understand that. We'll probably, both our first video together, we'll probably just go into a new album that we really enjoy, or maybe we'll review one of our favorite albums collectively together that we both mutually enjoy. But for me, I just wanted to start this first video doing my top 5 favorite albums of all time. All different and all have their own sort of quality to them that fits me and speaks to me on a lot of different levels and emotions. So, I guess we'll get started here. So, number 5, Grimes' Art Angels. So, growing up for me, I listened to a handful of female-fronted pop. I remember Lady Gaga, when she first came out, I thought that she was the coolest thing ever, and I think, you know, Grimes has a lot of influence from Lady Gaga. She said it before that, you know, Lady Gaga was like the first, like, not the first female-fronted pop artist, but the first female-fronted pop artist to do everything. As far as like directing, the music videos, the dance routines, everything that comes into it. I think Lady Gaga was very innovative in that, and a little bit more outspoken about her message than prior pop artists, as opposed to, you know, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Not to discredit any of her influences. I know people say that Lady Gaga is influenced by Madonna, and then of course Grimes is influenced by Lady Gaga, and there's nothing wrong with those influences or anything like that. There's just a certain quality to some of these more recent female pop artists than there might have been before. So, back to this album. Grimes' Art Angels. So, some of her earlier work, which I enjoy every album she's ever made for the most part. But this album, to me, really stuck out because some of her older albums didn't have the certain catchiness I was looking for. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because I really enjoyed her last album, Genesis, or not Genesis, or it might have been, what's the name of it? No. Anyways, her last album, I don't know why I'm blanking out right now, but I do really enjoy that album. I'm just totally blanking right now. But anyways, her last album was really, really good, and I enjoyed it for what it was, and there were some really cool parts to it, and I had some really fun music to listen to, but it lacked a certain punch or a quality to it that I was really just wanting to get into. You know, as I said before, me listening to Lady Gaga with her first 2 albums, you know, she just kind of had this confidence to her, and I was really wanting to see something like that from Grimes, and she did it on this album. She did it on Art Angels. I was so enthralled to hear the first single I heard from her was what was it? First single that she put out was, or that I listened to, was not California, but Flesh Without Blood. That's right. She put out the music video, and that music video was really cool. I enjoyed it aesthetically, but it just had that punch I was looking for in a pop song. And I don't mean that, like, aggressively. I mean, just, I was hearing a confidence that I felt like I'd never heard from Grimes before, ever, and it was just the coolest thing ever. I was just like, oh my god, she's just really getting into it. This album is a little bit, I know some people criticized her for being a little bit more mainstream or whatever. Me personally, I just thought it was a great fucking pop record. I really did. I thought it was a great female-fronted pop record, very catchy. Each song is different, and I do mean that. There's a couple of songs that may sound similar, but for the most part, and there's a lot of different stuff going on, different tempos, and her lyrics, all I can say about her lyrics is they are very open to interpretation. It's very hard to distinguish what exactly she's talking about. I think she's mentioned before that, like, her last album, I think she was talking about, like, a lot about, like, themes of feminism and being, like, sexually abused and stuff like that, which I would have never guessed, because she's so soft-spoken, and it's very... Her older stuff is a lot more soft-spoken, but this is a lot more upfront, and you can hear what she's saying, and just a lot more accessible, but yeah, you kind of just got to interpret it for yourself, listen to it, and then that's all I can really say. Because even her title tracks are just very interesting, and... excuse me. So are her lyrics, but I do love this album a lot, and even the artwork is really, really cool to me. I don't know why I enjoy it so much. I really don't, but I do. I love it. The colors, the aesthetic of it, the sound of it, just really cool to me. It just has a really cool feel to it. I can't, if you're, I don't know, if you just enjoy the feel of music, you might enjoy this. If you're not so much caught up on the lyrics or caught up on what exactly is happening and more just the feel of music, you might enjoy this. I don't know. But yeah, this is my top 5, so check it out. Alright, moving on. So to contrast that last album, that was a pop album, you could say. Number 4 is Deaf Heaven's New Bermuda. So some people have described them as like a black metal shoegaze fusion type band, and those two things don't really sound like they could really work together, but they do wonderfully. So this band I didn't really get into until a little bit after their first full-length album, Sunbather, so I haven't been into them for forever. But when I first listened to Sunbather, it was one of the most unique and interesting black metal albums I've ever heard. I know some people say that they're not like true or original black metal. I don't care about any of that. This band rules. They have a certain quality to them. It's black metal. Like, it's definitely black metal. Very harsh, shrieking vocals, blast beats, tremolo guitar picking. But what separates this band is their lyrics and I guess their lyrics and their guitar melodies. Those are the two things that I would definitely say separate this band from a traditional black metal band. This album specifically, the feel to this album as it starts off, it starts off with these like chimes, like these bells, almost like holiday bells, but then it just comes in with this guitar riff, and it is just, I don't know what about this, can't specifically say what about this guitar riff is so much different than other traditional black metal bands, but it is just dark sounding. You just get this vibe from it, and it's just miserable sounding. It is depressing, and it is amazing. Truly, you listen to it, and then it comes in with this guitar pick, and then this guitar tremolo picking, and then George's vocals comes in, and then you start to hear this melody on top of it. The melodies on top of these tremolo picking guitars, and it's just the most depressingly beautiful thing I think I've ever heard. Truly is. That's about the best way that I could describe it. It is depressingly beautiful. It is both of those things. Very, very somber and depressing lyrics, but there's still a certain beauty to it. It's almost like looking at dying flowers. You can like appreciate it in a sort of weird way. I don't know, but it is still a very, very dark record. Very dark sounding album, and the feel of it I can just relate to. It's just really sad and really depressing, and I don't know, I just enjoy the feel of it a lot. The artwork is really, really cool to me. I love it. I don't know the artist who did it, but it was a painting, of course. I can't tell if it's oil paint or watercolor. I think it might be oil paint, but it was an actual artist who actually painted the artwork, and it is just sad looking, and it's just enjoyable. If you've ever had dark times in your life, really, really dark stuff happen to you, if you've seen some dark stuff in your life, if you know that the world's a really cold and messed up place, then this album might speak to you. Obviously not everybody in the world feels that and sees what I do, but I feel as if I've just experienced, felt, and seen a lot of really dark stuff, and are seeing and experiencing a lot of dark stuff politically right now, and it just speaks to me. But I digress. Number 4, New Bermuda. Great album. Number 3 on the list, Chevelle's Vina Sera. So I didn't really get into this band actually until a couple years ago. I know this band has been around for probably 15 plus years. Some of their other stuff I enjoy, but I don't know what it is about this album, but I love this album. I just get a certain feeling from it from the get-go. There's just so much passion behind Matt's lyrics and his guitar playing and his riffs and everything, and it just, I don't know, it gets me going. It's definitely not, I wouldn't describe them as metal, and I wouldn't describe them as rock either. They're almost like alt rock, you could say, but I don't even really want to say that, because I hate pigeonholing music like that, I guess, for bands that don't have a specific sound. They just sound good to me. They're not the heaviest band, although they have some pretty heavy riffs, but they're not, you listen to the music and it's not meant to be angry. It's, they just have a certain feeling to them. Very meaningful, very abstract lyrics, and really accessible and catchy guitar riffs. That's what does it for me. Really catchy guitar riffs, really catchy verses, and even Matt's singing. That's one thing I forgot to mention too. His singing is really good in my opinion. I think he has a really good voice, and he has a pretty decent range on his vocals, and it just sounds really cool when he does different stuff. My favorite track on this album is Brainiac. I've listened to that song. I think that was my most listened to track on my Spotify list, I want to say. I've listened to that track several times. I don't know what it is. It just gets me going. Just has a certain feel to it. Like, I don't know how to describe the feeling other than it just kind of makes me not feel so bad about stuff in the world. I don't know. I just really enjoy it. So, all right, that's my number 3. Number 2, Death Symbolic. Death is one of my favorite metal bands of all time, period. I listen to a lot of different metal. I would probably say that that's the most music that I listen to, being metal. Death, in my opinion, I don't think has ever made one bad album. This is just one of those bands, similar, in my opinion, with Metallica. They just wrote album after album after album, although I don't enjoy every Metallica album, but Metallica, I do enjoy their first 5 albums, and, they just kept on putting album after album in the 80s and early 90s that were just awesome, just top of the world. This band, though, however, never got quite as big as Metallica. They were more of an underground death metal band, but Chuck Schuldiner, I think, is one of the most talented musicians of all time. Definitely underrated. As a whole, his band, being named Death, and being a death metal band, there's certain stigmas that come with death metal. It's just talking about blood and guts, that, it's just for weirdos and creeps. Chuck had some amazing guitar riffs and amazing and complicated and sophisticated solos and lyrics. He was just a talented musician. I don't care if you listen to death metal or not. There's no way that you can't not appreciate his guitar playing, lyrics, and vocals. Doing all of that, it is just amazing. He wrote some seriously heavy stuff, some of the most some of the heaviest stuff when it came out, really pushing the boundaries of heaviness, but Death is not one of those bands that's heavy to be for the sake of it. Cannibal Corpse, I would say, is kind of one of those bands. Nothing wrong with that. But Cannibal Corpse, I think, is kind of one of those bands just being brutal for the sake of being brutal. Whereas Chuck actually mentioned in a video that he did that he's not a satanic person and that he doesn't actually make music. The music that he does just for the sake of being brutal and heavy. He actually does. There's a lot of meaning behind his lyrics, and he puts a lot of effort into his guitar riffs and really wants you to get a feel for it. And this band is just the best in my opinion when it comes to death metal. There's just a certain quality that he could never be replaced. He died in 2002, 2004. I can't remember what year he died off the top of my head, but he did pass away. And up until the last album that he did, in my mind, it was all good. But this album specifically, Symbolic, is my favorite. Just from the get-go, the intro riff is just one of the catchiest things, one of the catchiest guitar riffs. It's so simple, so slow, but you just get a feeling from it. The tone, the what's the word I'm looking for? The reverb on it, I don't know what it is, but you just get a feeling. Like, you're like, whoa, this is insane. Like, this is really good. That just catches your ear from the first time listening, and then all throughout it's just filled with solid riffs. The production is solid. The drumming is solid. The whole band is good. I didn't mean to go on a rant about Chuck. I know a lot of people love to talk about him who do enjoy that band, but the rest of this whole entire band is great though. The drummer, I can't think of his name. The drummer who was on this album has also been, I know, he's done a lot of other projects. I know he's worked with like Fear Factory and a couple other stuff. I can't remember his name. It doesn't say on the album, but yeah, that drummer is very, very talented. I want to say he was even on the Eric Andre show one time or something like that. So yeah, he's done lots of really, really cool stuff. So yeah, got a great drummer, and then you can definitely hear the bass in this album. This is definitely not one of those albums where you don't hear the bass. This is one of those albums where you hear the bass on everything, and there's some seriously awesome bass leads. I want to say there's a second guitarist in this band as well. Of course, whatever parts he did, it made it work really, really well too. I don't mean to discredit him by any means. I just don't know specifically who did what and what riffs. But just as a whole, this album is just perfect in my mind as far as a death metal album. Really a metal album, period. But me personally, I guess I would put that also in death metal. But really, it's just, I know a lot of people, anybody who listens to death knows that there's just a certain quality of this band that no other death metal band will and has ever achieved. They were quite a band. Alright, so moving on. My number one. This is a fairly newer band, and I know it might be hard for some people to understand that, oh, my favorite album should be something that was made a couple years ago. Well, I'm going to explain myself. My number one, Nightmare Logic, Power Trip. Power Trip is a crossover thrash metal, punk, rock and roll metal band. They've got a lot of different influences. Band from Dallas, Texas. I'm from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I have been watching this band for the last few years, and I got into them in around 2014, 2015. As soon as their first full-length album, Manifest Decimation, came out. And although this band doesn't have the same discography as a band like Metallica, there is not one thing this band I've listened to and didn't enjoy. I know that they have like a tape. I haven't listened to like their early stuff, like 10 years ago. They had a tape. I haven't fully listened to that. But their first 7-inch has 3 songs on it, all amazing. All some of the best thrash metal I have ever heard in my life. It's got the speed and ferocity, ferocious, I don't even know what I'm saying. The speed and viciousness of punk, because they're a very punk influenced band, but with the attack and meanness and punch of like thrash metal. You really just kind of have to listen to them. But to me, this band sounds like if Metallica, Slayer, and I don't know, maybe Discharge had a fucking awesome baby, and this is the product of them, and it fucking rules. I'm gonna go as far as to say that I enjoy this band more than Metallica and Slayer, not because I think that, how do I say this? Not because I think that they're better musicians per se. I enjoy this band more because of their approach and their lyrics. Their lyrics are a lot more political and a lot more... Not that Metallica and Slayer don't write stuff politically, but this is more about what's really going on. Of course, their artwork and stuff like that is, pretty more on the metal side. Has a very hellish-like looking artwork on it. But I don't know. This band's lyrics are some of the most meaningful to me. As I said before, I enjoy everything they've ever done. The first 7-inch they did, the first EP they put out, the Armageddon Blues sessions, all those songs are extremely catchy, all have something relatable to listen to. And then the first album, Manifest Decimation, all amazing tracks on it. All banger after banger after banger. This band is about riffs and good lyrics. Really relatable political lyrics. And first time seeing them, it was the most insane thing I had ever seen. I mean, seriously. There was... If you live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you've ever seen Power Trip live, it is the most insane thing you will ever see. Pizza boxes flying, people. It is just fucking nuts. People stage diving off of fucking PAs. I mean, it is fucking insane. If you go to a Power Trip show, there's nothing else like it. They put on the most insane show. But I digress. Back to this album. The first song, it just comes in, Soul Sacrifice. It comes in, it has this like little like intro for like the first 30 to 45 seconds. It's like this like electronic intro, and it really builds up. And then this guitar riff, it just fucking punches you in the nuts. It is I wouldn't say the heaviest, because that's not even the right word. This riff, it just fucking punches you in the nuts, like listening to Metallica or Slayer for the first time. Except this band differs from Metallica, Slayer, and other thrash bands because they are a newer band, and they have, I hate to say it, but a little bit better production. I do. Their guitars sound hot and mean, as they should for a thrash metal band. Very catchy, of course, but the production is as cold as it is hot. If that makes any sense. This album, it has a certain clarity to it that's crisp, so it's not like you're listening to like an old school record, but the riffs themselves have a very old school vibe, but without ripping off older bands either. They've able to hone in a sound it's an old school sound, but are able to create something new with it. And, aside from the sound, their lyrics, again, mean the world to me. The lyrics, a lot of this stuff is talking about, how politicians in the world around us, there are politicians and people in power and authority that just absolutely devalue human life. So it's a very dark record, a lot of dark stuff going on, a lot of dark lyrics. My favorite track on this album, Waiting Around to Die. You can interpret his lyrics for a handful of things. I know some people say, it's about like I've heard my friends say that it's, you could say that it's about like the pharmaceutical industry. Me personally, though, Waiting Around to Die is just the guitar riffs, the lyrics, everything is just perfect to me. But there's not one track on this album that just doesn't stop. You listen to this album and it's just bam, bam, bam. It just doesn't stop. All 8 tracks. It is just, the fat has been cut and it just gets to the point, and then it's done, and then it's not too short and it's not too long either. It is just perfect. So yeah, number 1, Nightmare Logic. Alright, this is the Matt and Bailey review. That's all I got for today. So, next one of these videos, it'll probably be a little bit better quality on the camera, I hope so. We're hopefully going to be using his camera, and hopefully he'll be with me, and we'll talk about something else. So yeah, that was my top 5. See ya.